got into the Hilton LA airport, how full moon in Sagittarius is that. Right next to a runway, actually, which I think is hilarious because Sagittarius, of course, rules airplanes, travel, and runways. And here I am listening to airplanes all night long, right as the full moon was culminating last night. So I'm actually making this video on the other side of the full moon because I just couldn't wrap my brain around what was happening until I lived through it. And when you have a full moon in the middle of the night, you're really the day before you're living up to it. So a lot of people are confused because they're like, the full moon is said to be on the 17th, but now the moon's in Capricorn. So how is it, was it a Sagittarius full moon if the moon's in Capricorn today? Well, it's because it was 1:30 in the morning last night, or 4:30 if you're on the East Coast, 1:30 on the West Coast. So we're still feeling the reverb of it. Although the interesting thing is now the moon went into Capricorn. So it left Sagittarius right after it was full. And it went into Capricorn at like 9 a.m. this morning on the West Coast. So the energy shifted quite dramatically. That's a big kind of, there's always a full moon crash, you could say, because it's like that's the big building up of the emotional intensity. The full moons really churn all of our internal waters and our feelings. And then after we start to go into the waning phase, but the energy's still quite high, but you definitely feel a crash. There's a little bit of a post full moon hangover, I always say, emotional hangover. So because it's the most energy, the full moon. So we had that in the middle of the night for the most part, depending on where you live. And waking up now to a Capricorn moon, and as the moon now leaves this very bright Jupiterian Sagittarius full moon squaring to Neptune and Pisces, which is all, it's very illuminative, it's very spiritual, it's very inspiring, it's very mergy, it's quite divine. It was quite a divine energy. Going from that now into a little bit more of this darker, heavier Saturnian energy of a Capricorn waning moon. And now the moon, let's not forget, is going to be going into this mess of South Node, Saturn, Pluto, that I've been calling it the karmic inferno, which is now in this planetary oppositional intensity with Rahu, or the South or the North Node, Mars, and Mercury. So we're really feeling that polarity. And it's easy to get caught up in that whole inner dance between fear and love on the most simple level, which I've been talking about for the last few months in my videos. But how do we maintain all of that expansive optimism and illumination and hope of the Sagittarius full moon as we now kind of descend into this more heavy Saturnian energy over the next couple of days without like falling back into fear? It could feel like that, like I said, a crash. And I know a lot of people have been writing me that they have a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry coming up, and a lot of my clients have been asking me how to manage or handle fear as it comes, fear in the form of anxiety. That is often what anxiety is, and it's often worrying about the future. Anxiety lives in the future. Depression usually lives in something with the past. Anxiety is usually dreading the future. So, of course, the most simple answer is to come into the present moment, moment to moment, which is easier said than done. And the other solution, I would say, is to, this is a very, I tell my clients this all the time, it's deceivingly simple, but it's a beautiful teaching from the yogic tradition of Pratipaksha Bhavana, which is about the opposite thought, entertaining the opposite thought. So it means to actually think exactly the opposite of whatever is causing you the pain. What would be the opposite of that in redirecting the psychic energy? It's very powerful. It might sound too simple, but try it. It actually works. So if you're like, I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to never have money, whatever, if you start that route, for instance, you go to the opposite. There's abundance. I'm supported. I feel protected. Now, and I don't mean that in some kind of like you just talk yourself out of it, but why would you put your mental energy into the gutter when you can put it back into the light? And then, of course, for the real grace, my teacher always says we need both human effort in order to invoke the grace. So it's not as easy as just positive thinking, but if your mind is in the gutter, it's very difficult for you to then have the energy. If you don't have that kind of optimism, if you don't have enough of that energy to put the human effort in, how are you going to invoke the grace? So the grace comes from the optimism that gives you the energy to do the effort to confront your obstacles, right? So this is where Sagittarius can help us. And the devil archetype, by the way, one of his favorite mantras is, what you see is all there is. So it's like when people are depressed, you'll often hear them say, it is what it is, it's not going to get any better, this is it, this is what's always happened, this is what's always going to happen. That's negativity and fear, and we can project that onto our experiences, our relationships, even our future image. Like, I can't do this, I don't want to believe in it anymore, whatever it is, because we're basing it on the past. But we can rewrite and recreate the future, but it takes a lot of consciousness, and it takes a certain amount of faith and human effort, and then we invoke the grace. But it's a combination. It's not an either or thing. And I think this is the Cancer Capricorn polarity, because Capricorn's all about that pragmatic, kind of like the father, the like step by step, don't skip any steps, the disciplined energy we need. Cancer is like the good mother. It's like, but what nourishes you? How do you feel emotionally supported? What makes you feel at home? How do you emotionally trust? How do you let go of your emotional defense system in order to allow that deep emotional connection that you so desire? Capricorn can be on its unconscious side all about fear and repression and looking at the dark side. Cancer in its unconscious side can be also about emotional defenses, insecurities, and withdrawing from any potential situations that could emotionally harm. So how do we bring these two together in a more conscious way? Think of like higher mother-father energy, because Capricorn can also be like the positive father of like, well, if you work hard, you put in the effort, you are disciplined, you have integrity, anything's possible, but you have to show up. You have to show up, and you have to show up on time. Cancer would be, okay, yes, and you have my emotional support. What do you need? What kind of food do you need? What makes you feel at home? What kind of security do you need? How can I support you on that level? How do you have that deep emotional rootedness and security? We need both right now. And we're going to be in this dance for a while. And since I'm talking about this because this full moon really was the precursor to the eclipse season, which starts on July 2nd. And that first eclipse on July 2nd is in the sign of Cancer. 9 degrees Cancer, new moon solar eclipse. So look to where that hits in your chart, and that's where there's some kind of new storm blowing in, new beginning, new consciousness flooding in for you. And then the Capricorn full moon on the 24th, look to where that hits in your chart. That's a full moon lunar eclipse. That's also like major illumination, seeing things you've never seen before. And perhaps looking at your fear patterns. I think Cancer's looking at our emotional patterns and perhaps childhood wounds that we keep reliving or reenacting, or our emotional, it's often our emotional defenses, like our shell. Capricorn tends to be showing us our shadow energies, our what we've repressed, where fear has gripped us, but also it can be where we need to get more into alignment, where we need more discipline, where we need to show up, stop procrastinating. And I've been thinking about this too, actually, because I was saying, so Sagittarius is busting open whatever we had as preconceived notions. It's like, stop having preconceived notions, try to see the bigger picture. And it's interesting, yesterday was Father's Day when I arrived in LA, and my father was a Sagittarius, and one of his favorite, he is a Sagittarius, one of his favorite teachings was always about, try to see the best in people. Like, he really would always give people the benefit of the doubt. He's very generous with his outlook on other people, even if people irritate him or whatever. When it comes to character analysis, he always would give people the benefit of the doubt and try to see the best and always believe the best in people. And that's the beauty of Sagittarius. And he's definitely instilled that in me, and sometimes I did it to a naive degree, and then my Scorpio would kick in and I'd get the opposite extreme. But learning to see the best, even my guru says, always see the best in people, because even a broken watch will show the correct time twice a day. So I always think of that. And so busting through preconceived notions. And the other thing with Sagittarius I was thinking about is how it's my astrology teacher, Edwin Steinbrecher, actually taught me that we might think of Saturn as the planet associated with procrastination, but it's actually Jupiter. So he said, look to where Jupiter is in your chart, to where you probably procrastinate the most in your life. And of course, it's the ruler of my entire chart. So I am a major procrastinator. I'm trying to bust through that. And so this full moon can help us bust through procrastination too. And Capricorn's all about the timing and getting things done on time and honoring the confines, the limitations of time to support us. So anyway, I kind of had to rush through that because I want to get downstairs for the Alma evening program, but I didn't want to miss kind of the follow up with this full moon, because a lot of people have been writing to me that they've been very anxious and depressed and scared and sad and wondering what the connection is with the full moon. So I wanted to just explain, it's a little bit of that post full moon crash hangover of the moon over the next 2 days, going through that karmic inferno of K2 or South Node, Saturn, and then Pluto in Capricorn, and then also touching off on that opposite polarity of Mars, Mercury, and Rahu in Cancer. So let's really think about how we can integrate those energies as we are also right on the edge of the eclipse season, which is going to really open us up further. I mean, those eclipses are really to make us more and more conscious. So don't have fear about them. Just be open to what they are here to reveal for us. Okay, and thanks for watching. Our phone crashed out.